Welcome back to our breaking news coverage. As I told you in our last segment, we have our crews working behind the scenes here in the newsroom to get us some perspective on what it's like to fight these fires. We've been talking a lot about how we see the crews interacting, working together, and their strategy. And we were hoping to find an expert in the field, and we did. We finally got a hold of Leon Valley Fire Chief Michael Naughton. Chief, thank you so much for joining us. It's so helpful to get your perspective.
Absolutely.
So I'm assuming you've been tracking these pretty closely. How early in the day were you getting wind that these were spreading pretty quick?
Early this morning, the winds were fairly strong, and there was reports of, some small grass fire, brush fires. And as the day progressed and the wind increased, the numbers got more and more and bigger.
Yeah, and what kind of, our meteorologists have been watching this wind for a while. We knew it was coming. You guys knew it was coming. How do you prepare for something like this? Because you know how dry it is out there. We know how windy it's going to be. They've been described as historical winds. So is there any way to prepare for that?
So if you're talking about the fire departments, we tend to, when the wind is strong like this, we tend to put more resources on a fire faster to prevent it from growing than we normally would. As far as a homeowner goes, there's things they can do before a fire to address winds and things like that. They can alleviate burnable material around their house. They can trim up brush around their house. They can cut grass. They can do all sorts of things. But as far as the fire department, all we can do is put people out there because we don't know where it's going to start. We don't know when it's going to start.
Right.
And something as simple as a truck going down a highway that drags a chain on the ground can spark a fire that spreads quickly.
Right, and I appreciate that. We say sometimes, we joke, okay, it's so obvious, but it's really important because we're seeing what's happening. How many people are with your department? How many crew members do you guys have?
We have 28 firefighters
28. Okay.
on staff. We keep 8 on duty at all times, plus some admin people.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a good number. We have some of these smaller towns that have far less than that, and our volunteer fire departments. When we talked about these ones out in the county in these really small areas, very rural areas, we were talking about this, about how you respond to that with a smaller crew and what the protocol is for response. At what point do you call for more help, for higher resources, a bigger department, maybe like San Antonio Fire Department, like the county did, because we see that teamwork. What is the kind of tripping point for when you need to ask for more help?
So on a day like today, if you get dispatched to a brush fire, grass fire, you would call for a lot of help right away. Usually the person calling in the incident will say, hey, there's a field on fire, or there's, a bunch of brush on fire. It's not something small. You would get resources coming right away. And luckily in our region, in the Bexar County region and the counties that surround us, we pretty much have mutual aid or automatic aid agreements in place to be able to call these additional resources. The departments that are smaller, they'll already have plans in place to get the next 3 fire stations around them rolling on something so they can put it out or get control of it before it spreads into their jurisdiction.
Yeah, and that's a great point that you bring up. There is obviously some great communication that has to happen. And we have an incredible vantage point of this Calaveras fire. There's a multi-story apartment, and we've had this view of the way these crews are fighting the fire. And it is so insightful and inspiring, really, how everyone's communicating so well, because you see people with different vests on, and you can tell the colors, they're not all from the same place. So how do you guys communicate? How do you know how to communicate together? Do you train together, or is it all just the same protocol that you follow when you're at a wildfire?
We basically all do the same thing and receive the same training. While we may not work together on a regular basis, we all get the same basic wildland firefighter training that teaches us how to do this stuff, where we're going to fight fire from, our escape routes and things like that. And when you talk about communications, since 9/11, there has been just a huge push to get everybody talking the same, on the same radios and the same channels. And fortunately for us, being Bexar County residents, we're all part, for the most part, of the Bexar County City of San Antonio Shirts radio system. And so we all talk on the same radio. We get dispatched and we have mutual aid channels, and everybody's in the same place talking. As opposed to years and years ago, nobody was on the same radio channels. Nobody had the same radios, not even on the same frequencies. And today, we just turn a knob and we're talking to whoever's on that scene. So it's come a long way in the last several years, and there's been a tremendous push for mutual aid. And it doesn't matter if you're a department the size of San Antonio, or if you're the department that's only got 3 guys sometime at the fire station.
Wow.
Everybody talks the same, everybody does the same, and everybody eventually is going to need help.
That is such valuable insight, and I really appreciate that explanation. I mean, as a resident here, regardless of what county you're in, it really makes me feel more confident to know how seamlessly you work together, and I have seen that in action today. I have watched for hours, like I said before, these crews working together. I mean, we reported that there are Travis County crews from Austin, and there are Waco crews that have come in, and it's amazing to see the seamless communication. So it's great to know how that all works, and it makes a lot of us feel better about the situation when a fire can get that close to our property. Because at this Calaveras fire, which is what the 37 and Salton fire is now called by the Forest Service, we watched so nervously as this fire crept feet away from some of these mobile homes, and it looked like it was going to encapsulate these homes, but somehow these crews were able to stop that line. When you are that close to property, what are they doing? Are they trying to move the direction of the fire? Because whatever they did worked, and I would love some insight into how they were able to do that.
So back to one of your first comments about Waco and whatever other names you said, the state of Texas has a mutual aid system that crosses county lines all across the state. So right now, you have fire crews dispatched to, hold on. You have fire crews in South Texas right now from our region helping fight fires down there that were deployed before this started. The interstate mutual aid works great. In West Texas, we get a lot of fire crews that go to West Texas for those big fires that happen every year. So when it happens to us, these people come right to us. And when you're talking about fighting fires out there in brush and grass, and all that. You know, one of the big things they tell you is to always fight from the black. So fire crews are on the burnt side of the fire, and they're trying to break that burning fire line and slow the spread of the fire. But they're not on the front of it. They may go to the front and try to build fire breaks to where they can stop a fire from spreading. But a lot of the smaller crews are on the back side of the fire trying to stop it from moving forward. Um, if you have big patches of land, they'll bring in bulldozers and they'll just start cutting swaths of land down to the mineral earth to keep the fire from spreading. You know, and the one thing that I'll tell you about the fire today in the wind is an ember from a burning tree or stick or branch or something can travel a mile in the wind.
Wow.
A mile.
Wow. And even quicker, I'm sure now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could have fire spreading way past where you're at with wind like this, creating spot fires that can get bigger and bigger and out of control.
Wow.
So it's tough. It's just tough. You don't know where that stuff is going to go. You can monitor the wind and say, you know, we should be a mile down the road heading, you know, southwest because the wind's coming out of the northeast. You know, you can do some of that. And today with drones and helicopters and all that, you can monitor it, but it's just boots on the ground. I mean, these are tough fires to fight. And the way that you're going to fight them short of bulldozers is you've got guys out there on foot putting out fire, dragging hose.
Yeah, and we've seen hoses of all sizes too. It's pretty incredible to watch. A question that we've had, at what point do you fight a fire that grows this big from an aerial perspective? Do you bring in planes or drones at any point? What's the protocol for that? Because we know we see that in the large California fires and things like that.
It depends on the size of the fire. I can tell you that they've had fire retardant drops at Camp Bullis when Camp Bullis was on fire a couple years ago. It all depends on the incident commander that's running that scene and what he sees best as to be able to put out the fire. I mean, you can't drop the retardant on houses.
Right.
It'll destroy a car if it hits a car. I mean, you're talking dropping a lot of weight, even water runs like that. But you know, it also depends on what's available.
Right, right. And
because right now you have some of our regional assets all the way in California still helping with them. It just depends what's available.
Right, and thank you for explaining
that. It's going to get loud just for a second.
I'm sorry?
It's going to get loud just for a second, so I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. If you guys need to get going, then that's...
No, I'll stop it.
Okay.
It's just you're going to hear some talking in the background.
Yeah, that's fine. No, we can still hear you loud and clear. My only other question when it comes to strategy is, you know, we cover so many house fires and structure fires. I've been to hundreds in my coverage here at KSAT, and you hear crews going on the offense or the defense, and that's typically because the structure becomes too dangerous to go inside. Is there a defensive way to fight a wildfire, or is it really just your boots on the ground like you were explaining, and then you just get in there at whatever angle you need to?
It's boots on the ground.
Okay.
It's boots on the ground. I mean, if you know that you have fire coming your direction, you can cut fire breaks.
Right.
If you know something's coming, but you know, most of it is boots to put out the fire. Your boots on the ground. I know that you'll recognize it, but you know, one of the best ways to prevent big fires is to have a fire. It's to do back burns and to pre-burn stuff. if you'll remember, a couple summers ago, they burned Guadalupe State Park. They burned a couple other places, and that's to control fire.
Right. Right. That's a
But
great
on a
point.
day like today, you couldn't go out and do a back burn. It would be, you'd just be starting another fire you couldn't control.
Right. There's a
Uh,
time and a place for sure.
there is. Those
Yeah.
are preemptive things that you
Right.
can do months before,
Well,
but
that's good to know. Yeah, that's
you
good to
just
know.
you
And
just
I
can't do it
appreciate your
today.
insight more than you know for our viewers. Leon Valley Fire Chief Michael Naughton, we appreciate your time so much, and we will be staying in touch with you because that insight was really wonderful. So thanks for being here with us.
Okay, thank you, and I hope everybody's safe.
Yeah, you stay safe as well, you and your crew. Thank you.